Hi there, my name is Griffin Parry. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Meter, and this is John Griffin, another Griffin, who is the other co-founder and the CRO of Meter. The purpose of this video is to tell you a little bit about our founding story, because what's fundamental about Meter is that we're solving a problem that we experienced firsthand ourselves. So we'll give you a little bit of the history and then tell you a little bit about that pain we experienced and what motivated us to start Meter. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. I actually startups are a second career. My first career was in media and telecoms, and that's where I first met John over 20 years ago. I was a customer and he was a supplier. We were building a video platform, and John and his company helped me do that. And then one thing led to another, and we founded our first company together.
Yep, we set up a company called GameSparks, which was a back-end as a service for games developers, to help them build out the cloud components of their games, things like multiplayer, leaderboards, etc. That company was characterized by, it grew really fast, and so with thousands of customers, and it was where we first encountered usage-based pricing, which helped us grow really fast. And actually that company was very successful, and AWS bought it. And so we first encountered usage-based pricing at our time in GameSparks and the challenges that came with it. But then we could see them again when we were in AWS, with AWS customers, even AWS itself. So what were some of the problems that we encountered?
Okay, I'm going to take you back. It's going to be painful, give you nightmares. But if you watching work for a company above a certain size and you have usage-based elements in your pricing model, you will likely see these pain points as well. So we'll focus on the pain and we'll talk about the solutions later. So the first pain point we had a lot of billing operations pain. So preparing our invoices and sending them out to customers and closing the books every month was a painful process that you yourself were right in the middle of.
Yeah, and you see it with our customers too, when, without a solution, there's a lot of manual work, generally using things like spreadsheets to kind of merge the data sets, usage data with pricing. It leads to a lot of errors, but it takes a lot of time, and that's the main issue. And so, like customers like Sift, for example, they had a lot of very complex billing. Product packaging and pricing would vary quite a lot across the customer base. And so it just meant that there was a lot of manual work to ensure that every customer would get billed correctly at the end of each month. And it meant that their billing cycle would often eat into 2, maybe even 3 weeks. And the more complex the pricing, the longer that takes. It was really hard for them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it took a lot of time, but there was a lot of anxiety as well, because we were really worried about getting things wrong, which didn't stop us from getting things wrong. So we made billing errors, and we also struggled with revenue recognition. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, to remind you of, revenue leakage. And just to give what I mean by revenue leakage is that we were underbilling our customers quite significantly for various reasons.
I think as Griff is listing off these problems, I think he's looking at me and saying, actually, they were my mistakes because I ran billing for GameSparks. And actually, even after AWS bought GameSparks, I continued to run billing for GameSparks for the years that we were there. So very, very familiar with all this, but I think my co-founder and partner is essentially telling us that they were my fault. And it was mainly because they were manual. But going back to the problem about revenue leakage, it is interesting because a customer of ours on Fido, they would have thousands of customers that they're billing each month, but they have also complex pricing. And when a scenario like that exists and you're still using things like spreadsheets to try and fix it, you end up not being able to bill for some of the things you've agreed with your customers. And they were, in fact, leaving about 1% of revenue on the table, which amounted to a lot of money each month. And we see that consistently across all of our customers. Not all of them will fess up to it or admit to what the numbers are, but you see it nearly everywhere.
Just to make you feel better, it's not your fault. It's hard, and lots of people out there suffer from exactly the same problems. It's fundamentally a lack of automation. Third problem, bad customer experiences. What you need to recognize is if you have more complicated pricing models like this, your customers really want to know how much they're using and how much they're spending. They expect the teams that they interact with to have that knowledge. The teams that are doing the interacting want that knowledge and also want to be able to anticipate what the customers might be worried about. And also, the customer would actually quite like to bypass humans quite often and self-serve that data themselves. So that ring a bell? We had that problem, I think.
Oh, well, definitely. And the first step to kind of solving it is to be able to put that level of detail even on the invoice itself, which is what we did with Onfido, going back to that as an example. And I recall the month they went live, they had a 90% drop in customer queries related to billing. So putting it on the invoice itself, I think, is the first step. But also, it's really hard to kind of offer that rich customer experience where customers can self-serve and see the information in the dashboard. We certainly didn't have it.
Nope.
And that's really painful, because ultimately, if customers are on complex usage-based models, they need to be able to see why my bill was the way it was, why the numbers are the way the numbers. But nearly importantly, they also need to get an ability to kind of predict where they're going to be, so they can make sure that they got the budget and things like that.
So, fourth problem, again, one that's likely to resonate with lots of people watching, is we were really frustrated about billing operations limiting what sales could do. So I remember you telling me often, I could sell more quickly to this customer if I could adapt to their reasonable requests about how they'd like to be charged. But I can't adapt because our whole billing operation setup is too fragile and it's too difficult to change. So I think that really frustrated you and your sales team around the deals that you wanted to do.
Yeah, and software companies of a certain stage and size where they've made key decisions around their monetization infrastructure, unfortunately they end up with some rigidity there. And so salespeople may be constrained by the type of models they want to implement or could implement in order to accelerate sales cycles. We see that across the board with our customers. You need some rules because salespeople would probably get more creative than maybe is totally required. But at the same time, you don't want to be restrictive. I mean, there's just little point, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and the final thing, again, this will resonate with a lot of people watching. Product also, we felt blocked around product for the same reasons. Our billing operations set up, its sort of its lack of agility and its fragility meant that when we wanted to introduce new features or change the packaging or even introduce a new product line, we were really held back. It took us a lot longer to do that than we should have done, and we were operating in a very competitive, fast-moving market, and we couldn't move the product as fast as we wanted to because of the billing systems.
Yeah, totally. It's like how many systems of record need to be updated in order for us to be able to release this feature. We got feedback from ClickHouse after they went live that they said we were only able to launch this totally new product in under 6 weeks because we had Meter as part of the solution. So in my experience, and I think yours too, we'd agree, software companies are so good and spend all their effort at their own product, but often slightly at the expense of how they're going to monetize those products. And so you really need to think about that. Like in our pay TV days when we were working as I was at, like a pay TV company sees the product and how you're going to monetize it at the same level. Software companies don't always do that. And maybe they ought to. And that's one of the problems that we're here to address.
Cool. So that was the point of this video, is that we're talking about the symptoms, the problems. They're painful and they make a difference, and you should feel some urgency in addressing them. The good news is that there is a common root cause which can be addressed and solved for, and we'll talk about that in future videos.